the video now.
Hi, baby. I'm getting ready to go to the parole hearing, and I'm all dressed up and ready to go. This is me today, and I overruled you and went with the brown rather than the black because I think brown is more warm and comforting, and black is more ominous and threatening. So we're leaving in a little while, and I just wanted to say wish me luck. Pray. Bye-bye, baby.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Blackhand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored. Welcome back to another episode, and we're going to do a little update on Indio, Henry Carlos. We ran an episode on him the other day, and we discussed his going up for parole. Unfortunately, he was denied for 7 years, which is pretty darn harsh. You know, I've heard of a 3-year denial and a 5-year denial. In fact, the BPH, the California Board of Prison Hearings, can deny you for up to 15 years if they find you unsuitable. And anybody can petition after 18 months for a review of the denial and ask for an advancement of the parole hearing. So Henry has the opportunity to ask for a review if he feels that within 18 months he's corrected what the board had found lacking in his eligibility. I think that's highly unlikely that they would do that. Given that it was a 7-year denial, I would base educated guess that it was CDC 1030 forms, which are confidential information that are collected from a broad range of sources: law enforcement, the courts, informants on the yard, informants on the streets, observations of law enforcement and CDC officers. Anybody can write a confidential, and it goes into what is known as a confidential file. And the board really evaluates these. I mean, they're weighty in the parole hearing. And I think the second strike against Henry is probably his clinical risk assessment, or CRA, which is a psych eval, right? Every inmate that goes to the board that's a lifer has to have a CRA done, which means you sit down with a psych for a few hours and they evaluate you. They do an archival review, a personal review. They put you through the PCL, the whole 9 yards, right? And again, estimated guess by history and definition, he is probably got a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. And they probably ran him to the psychopathy checklist. And people throw that phrase around a lot, right? Psychopathy and sociopath, right? But it's a pretty rare diagnosis. I would imagine that Henry scored high, but below the cutoff point. And those things weigh heavily. And again, this is rank speculation, right? Just based on my experiences with the board. And I went through all that, right? I scored high in the PCL checklist. I was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, substance abuse disorder. So they're going to do the same thing with Henry because he's got a lot of the same issues that I had, right? Any Mexican Mafia member going before the board is going to face the same issues. It's kind of like a cookie cutter. The CDC defines you, well, not the CDC, it's actually the FAD, the Forensic Assessment Division, that sends psychiatrists, actually psychologists, they're not psychiatrists, to evaluate you, right? They're on this panel of individuals that do clinical risk assessments, and it's a requirement. And there are 3 scores that you can get. High, it's at a high risk for recidivism and relapse into substance abuse, or moderate, which is a moderate risk, or medium of violent behavior and recidivism, or low risk for violent behavior and recidivism or reoffense, right? The best to get is low. I had scored a low. I got bumped up to moderate. I had scored a high before that, right? So it can vary. A moderate has a chance. Because I paroled with a moderate. I had a low before that, but I got a kind of a jacked up, screwed up psychologist. I'll say it straight out. You know, she had a bone to pick, and she picked it, and she bumped me from low to high. So I'm thinking Henry's not scoring well on the CRA. Again, all rank speculation. I haven't even looked at the transcripts from his hearing. They are available, public record, as are mine. Uh, and it's a process, right? Meeting the requirements of the board, just having clean time is not enough. Not having 115s and done 30 years, that's not enough, right? You have to show the board that you have made efforts to achieve uh, a state of maturity in which you understand, you have insight into the causative factors of your criminal behavior. What led you down the path, right? What made you, participate in criminal activity and violent behavior? And they want to know that you understand this, and you have to have the ability to articulate this well in front of the board. So my advice for Henry would be to study those transcripts, look at every ding they got him on, every time they talked negatively or every time they brought something up that was unfavorable towards him, plug up those holes, right? That's what I did for 10 years. Every time I saw my psych report or the transcripts, I would go back and work on that. Say I lacked insight, or my parole plans weren't realistic, or I scored a high in a CRA, a clinical risk assessment. I did everything I could to lower and address those issues until they couldn't do it anymore. Until I plugged every hole, and that was the last parole hearing. I had a moderate score on my CRA, and I had plugged every hole that the governor could possibly address. And keep in mind, I didn't get just one parole grant. I got 6 parole grants. And California is one of the very few states in which the governor has veto power on lifers with murder. And he exercised it. 2 governors, Governor Jerry Brown and Governor Newsom, did that. They both reversed me multiple times. And the third time he did it, I filed a writ of habeas corpus. And I prevailed. The courts ruled in my favor. I won on every issue. And the governor was forced to release me. But Henry has got an uphill battle. Number one, no active Mexican mafia member has ever received a parole grant. And it's highly unlikely that they will, particularly because of the 1030s and the CRAs. Like absent disciplinary behavior in CDC and years in prison don't cut it in front of the board. And the courts have upheld that as well. They have broad latitude. And they're professionals. Like, you have psychologists, you have former chiefs of police, former prosecutors. Like, these are blue line people, right? And they're extremely intelligent. You can't go in there and hoodwink them. I mean, it's been done before. I've seen guys get grants, and then that night see them slamming dope in their cell, right? Oh, I'm just celebrating, bro. And I'm like, hey, that's your life. It's not me. I'm not going to do that, I'm celebrating. I'm going home. I say, but hey, you're sticking a needle in your arm, bro. But, I'm not judging. I'm truly not, to each his own. But you can't hoodwink this guys. It's just a really difficult process, right? The board is not a walk in the park. It's really stressful. It's really arduous. And it's not an easy thing to do. But getting the grant is the whole thing. It's like devoting your life to a college doctorate degree, right? You have to go in there and study. You have to write your dissertation. Your board packet is your dissertation, right? Your thesis, it's everything about you that you've improved, that you've addressed victim reconciliation, that you understand the impact of crime on the community, not just the direct victim. It's having insight and giving back to the community. Now, one person I've seen who's done something like this is Mark Iquitos, another Mexican mafia member who will be up for parole at some point in the future. And I think he's got a shot. I think it's a very slim shot. But I've seen a documentary recently where he talked about bringing together the races in a sports competition. But that alone is not going to get us parole. I hope he gets it. I hope Henry gets it. I hope all Mexican mafia members or anybody that goes up for parole gets it. But there is a formula to this. There really is a formula. And I think one of the first things they need to do is acknowledge membership. Like, hey, yeah, I am a Mexican mafia member. This is what I used to be. This is who I was, but it's no longer who I am. And 1030s will always come in because I haven't debriefed. And because I haven't debriefed, they think I'm active, but I am not. I think that's the way to address it, right? That's the simple way to address it. That's the way to address it. It's going to be far-fetched for the board to believe that, but I think that's the first step, right? And that's just a tip of advice for individuals going up to the board. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not trying to keep those guys in. I hope they get out to breathe free air. I wish they could, live one day of this blessing to be free. I mean, it would change their whole perspective on life. That is not living where they're at. It's existing, and parole is up for everybody right now. It's the great exodus. Everybody's getting out of prison. And you know what? I ran across some video where I went to my first parole hearing in Lancaster, right? I'm with my handlers. I'm in the car. And I got denied. I got denied parole. I had been refusing the parole hearing for about 5 years. And I was housed at a substation in California. And they would come to see me or send notification from the BPH. And I said, tell them I waive. Until one time, an attorney insisted, a parole attorney insisted on visiting me. And my old handler, Jeff Bosket, brought him in. And I brought out all the letters I have from the United States attorneys, the FBI, everybody. I had letters from everywhere documenting my cooperation, all the stuff that I had done, certificates that I had received from law enforcement associations for training, and just a ton of stuff, right? And I had dropped out. I had debriefed. I did all that, right? And I just thought, no, I'm not going to go, man. I just don't think it's time. It's, and they weren't giving out paroles at that time. This had just started. The great exodus had just started. So I saw this attorney. I forgot his name. It was Middle Eastern, I believe his name was. It had that Middle Eastern twang to it. And he looked at me and said, why are you refusing parole? You're an excellent candidate. You'll get out of prison if you go to the parole hearing. So I went. And I saw two women and actually thought I was going to get granted that day, but they denied me, right? A 3-year denial. And you'll see me before the parole hearing, getting ready in my cell. I'm getting dressed. I got to wear my street clothes to the parole hearings, and one of them I wore a suit. And I got some footage of that for you. And I remember this. I remember getting denied, and we're driving out of Lancaster. It was a rainy day. And I remember seeing this double rainbow from the car. And I remembered when Noah went through the 40-day flood. He had the ark and the 40-day flood. And God told him as a covenant to I'm going to send up this rainbow. And I can't remember, so I'm paraphrasing. I'm going to set up this rainbow as a covenant to you that I will never do this again, right? I will never flood the earth again. I will never wreak havoc like this, right? And I remembered I saw that not just one rainbow, but a double rainbow. And I said, that's God's message to me, that this is never going to happen again. And I went home with that thought, right? And every time I see a rainbow now, I know that's God's message. Like, hey, good things are coming, right? So after that, seeing that rainbow in this video, I got the grant. And I continued getting grants for 10 years after that, right? Like every 18 months, I go to the board, I get a grant, the governor would take it away until I finally filed, right? But the parole process, again, is a stringent process. And active gang members are going to be hard-pressed to get it. They're going to be very hard-pressed to get a grant, because particularly those 1030s, they weigh heavy, right? And being an active member who hasn't participated in the debriefing process means something to the board. Being an active gang member is like 10 strikes against you already. Having 1030s is 20 more strikes against you. Not having completed, appropriate parole plans or completed all the courses or acquired a college degree or advanced in your vocation, all those things matter to the board. We're going to get into this a little bit more. With that said, I hope you enjoy this episode. There's quite a bit of information available for those that are going to the board, that potentially have action at the board. And it's possible for anybody. If I could get parole, me, Rene Enriquez, who was a poster child to keep in prison. I had a life without sentence and 215 lives, right? If I could get parole, then anybody can get it. But it's a discipline. It really means changing your life. You can't just check the boxes, right? and do it. It's just not possible to do that, you know, because this is a real evaluation. They're going to dive deep into your psyche. They're going to dive deep into your prison behavior, your criminal convictions, everything. Everything's going to be evaluated and put on the table. So unless you're willing to like open up your soul and do the hard work that's necessary for rehabilitation, because rehabilitation is possible, right? And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for individuals who truly have rehabilitated themselves and no longer pose a threat to the community, that aren't going to go out and recidivate. That's what they want. Those are the candidates they want. And there are thousands of individuals every year getting grants on parole, lifers. But they've been at it for a decade or more. So if you ever want to see freedom and breathe free air, then start work now. You know, it really is an eye-opener. Or you could decide to die in prison, because that's the reality of what it's going to become. They'll never grant parole to you. And this isn't specifically for Henry. I mean, I feel so bad that he got a 7-year denial. He can request an advancement after 18 months, and I think that he will after a respective period of time, not 18 months, but maybe 3 years. But if you ever want to get parole, you have to do the work. And it's a lot of work. I still got my parole packet right here. You know, I have a huge parole packet here of all the letters and all the stuff that I've done. It's arduous. I mean, it's arduous. So stand by to do the work. Know that it can be done. Don't lose hope. Freedom is possible. With that said, folks, I'm out of here. Have a wonderful day. Hope you enjoy the footage. Peace out. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and hype.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Bouncer.